What's up, guys? It is 70 degrees outside, so I thought what better way than to come out to the garden and talk garden planning. I have my garden planner that I am using. You can use anything. I've showed this a couple times inside my past videos about garden planning, and some people have asked me where I've gotten it from, and I told them, but this is an old garden planner that I just didn't use last year, and so I'm using it just specifically for the garden layout section, as well as the section that says garden notes in it. And some people have thought this is really cool, so I figured that we would go ahead in detail. I did show this but it was on the end of a vlog, and a lot of people don't watch to the end of the video, so you probably missed it. But I'm gonna go in and show you how you can create your own garden plan for 2024. With your own garden layout. You can get, if you're interested in these little dots and trying to prepare your own garden, you can get any kind of like composition notebook, because my kids have these types of like for math, and you can draw out your garden. I used two different ones because my garden is separated into log raised beds at the front, and so I have one garden layout that just has the log raised beds in it, and then the other garden layout has all of my wooden size raised beds. And what you see are these colors that highlight, and what those highlights are basically what I did was go ahead through and highlight with a highlighter that I had any bed that I put landscape fabric on, or any bed that I could put landscape fabric on. Places where I'm going to be planting carrots and like really small seeds, I'm not going to be putting landscape fabric on, so I was mindful when I made or decided which beds I was going to cover. So I had to have this garden plan laid out first, because carrots are too little. So stuff like carrots, I'm not going to be putting down landscape fabric. So the first thing that you want to do when garden planning is go to your Farmer's Almanac. That's where I went, and I put in my zip code, and it tells me, it says on average your last frost occurs on March 27th, and that is the closest town to me. And it tells you your elevation. I am in coastal South Carolina, zone 8B, and I've shared this before, but our estimated frost date has always been, as long as I've been gardening, the first week of April. But this year, with them changing like the hardiness zones and stuff like that, this is the first year that it says March 27th. I'm not going to go by March 27th because I'm basing my estimation on experience. Last year here, our last frost date was April 2nd, which was our estimated day, so they were correct there. But then the year before, we had a late frost in April that wiped out a lot of people's plants mid-April. So I'm playing it safe, and I'm still continuing to say that my last estimated frost date is April 2nd. But if you're new to gardening and you're not sure about your area and you haven't been tracking your last frost for the past few years, this is basically a really good estimation. And on it, it tells you the crops, and then it tells you when you can plant your seedlings. You can plant it or transplant. So it tells you you can start it indoors, and it tells you the dates that would be good for your area to start it indoors. When I go to, where is it, cauliflower, for instance, for mine, it tells me February 13th to the 27th is when I would plant it indoors, started it indoors, based off of my last estimated frost. And then it also has noon dates, and then it tells you also where you can plant it or transplant it outside. And transplant outside, it says March 20th to April 3rd. I am not going off of that. I've already started my cauliflower and my brassicas, because usually when I've tried to go off of this and plant my cauliflower and brassicas that late, they end up bolting in the springtime, because we get so hot so fast here, and we get temperatures up way above the 80s sometimes before our last estimated frost date. So I'm trying to plant mine earlier than that. But for everything else, I basically follow this. So for like my bell peppers, it said that I can start indoors January 16th to January 30th. I planted my bell peppers, it is the beginning of January, and that is based off of 12 weeks from my last estimated frost date. Another thing that you can do is look at the back of your seed packets. Most of the back of your seed packets will tell you when to start those seeds. So when you look on the back of bell peppers, most of mine say 10 to 12 weeks start indoors. And then if you have a seed packet that does not have when you can start it, you can either look on your farmer's almanac, or you can Google and it will tell you when to start that thing, when to start that seed. So if you look right here, I have 12 weeks from my last estimated frost date being April 2nd, and I have the date on when I should start those things, and then I put everything that I want to grow and everything that I want to start. And what I did was then I highlighted, as I started those things, I highlighted so that I would know if I could only plant one thing that day, then I, would highlight it and know that I already did that. And then I just went through and did that to each one. I did the same thing at the 10-week mark. The only thing that I did not highlight is because I didn't plant it was these tomatoes, because I did not start them, but I did start the brassicas, like I already explained, because I wanted to see if I could get them to not go to seed and get them out earlier in the springtime. But then you can see I did that for the 8-week mark, and I put when the 8-week mark is and then what I can plant there. I did it for 6 weeks, then I did it for 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 0 weeks, which is my actual estimated last frost date, April 2nd. And then I even did it for 2 weeks after my last estimated frost date, because there are certain things, which would be April 16th, because there's certain things that after your last estimated frost date, like corn, sweet potatoes, and sunflowers, stuff like that, that really need really warm temperatures to really thrive. You can start them really late into the season. Not only do I have sunflowers 2 weeks after my last estimated frost date, I have it on my frost date and then 2 weeks before my last frost date, because I'll start some underneath, like in the hoop house, and then I'll start some outdoors. And so I'm trying to do sunflowers because I want to have some as cut flowers, and they're like a single use. Like once you cut them, then there's no more sunflower. Like that's the head that you cut. And so I want to plant some every 2 weeks. And so that's stuff that you need to think about when you're coming time for your garden plan. You want to think about how many plants that you need, how many, and so I wrote how many plants I needed, and then I planted more than that because that's just how many plants I needed. And how I knew what plants I needed was based off of my garden layout. These beds were 3x6. I changed them to 3x15. So now I think I have about, actually I can count here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16. I have 16 3x15 beds. And so what I did was I drew them on my little dots on my garden layout here, and I thought about my garden plan. I thought about some of the trellises that I already had up if I wanted to move them next year. So I took down all of my trellises on the right side of my garden, because I am going to be now having tomatoes planted. Years and years, not years and years, oh my goodness. The last 2 years I planted my tomatoes in my log raised beds areas, but I'm not doing that this year, and so I'm moving them up into these wooden sides raised beds, and that's why I made them longer. And I just basically wrote that. I wrote that I'm gonna have tomatoes there, and what kind. I wrote if they were gonna be determinate, cherries, or indeterminate. Down this row I'm going to have, I usually have cherry tomatoes, but this year I'm gonna try dwarf. For the past 2 years, I know that this bed right next to me has had pole beans, and so I would assume that pole beans are going to, since I didn't harvest all of them, would start sprouting up in the spring because they did last year, and I'm just going to leave them there. I'm going to replant pole beans there again. And so what you need to do is think about, once you draw out your area, you can go and you can switch and erase. And I've changed this a lot of times already, based off of once I come out here and I'm looking at stuff, I'm looking at the sun, and I'm thinking about like what's going to shade what. And so you can change it based off of your needs, because I've definitely changed mine so much. And I know that in my log raised beds this year, I want to have cut flowers. And so that is what I did on the opposite side. I wrote down what kind of flowers I wanted to plant, and then I looked up, you know, how, if I wanted to use them for cut flowers, how often should I replant them, because we have a long growing season here. We can start planting in, you know, outside in like April for frost tender things, and our frost isn't going to come, our first frost isn't going to come until like the 1st or 2nd week of November. So that's a long time to grow. So if you're looking into doing a garden layout and trying to plan your garden now, it's the perfect time to get you a little notebook with little dots where you can draw out your garden space. You can go on the Farmer's Almanac, see when's your last frost date, count back from there based off the seeds that you want to start. You can start peppers, like I said, 12 weeks, depending on what area you live in, and depending on how fast, you know, like, are you going to be fertilizing your seedlings, and are they going to have supplemental light? Because if you're going to be started, I know I've started some tomatoes probably sometimes 10 to 8 weeks before my last frost date, and then I know gardeners who have started their tomatoes 6 weeks before their last estimated frost dates, and their tomatoes had looked bigger than mine, but they were like fertilizing it. They started in a hotter time, so it grew faster, and they had supplemental light and stuff like that. So it all factors in on how you are going to be starting your seedlings in, and you can process that and think about that. But I just wanted to show you guys my garden layout and show you how I have it laid out and what I plan on growing this year, to maybe give you guys inspiration on my mindset and what I'm going to be doing, and then hopefully that can help you guys and give you guys some things to think about. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you have any more questions with your garden plan or seed starting or anything like that, definitely reach out, let me know, and I will be happy to help you guys out. I will see you guys next time. Bye.